My lords, our science team believes that we have identified a sixth Shroud God, and against all reason and understanding, we might even be able to call it a machine god. For those ignorant of the Shroud, it's a realm of psionic energy, and one can only visit or even commune with it if they are attuned to its energy. Once properly attuned to the Shroud, given an appropriate level of talent, one can manipulate its energy to create whatever desires take their fancy. They can also use it to transport themselves through the physical universe, either as an individual or through the use of psionic jump drive technologies. We know that the Shroud is occupied by various small entities, all of whom have so far appeared hostile, and there are also 5 gods, for lack of a better description. These gods appear to have animosity with one another, as they appear to covet different ethics and have different goals from one another. Gods is perhaps a little fanciful, we'll refer to them as entities. The 5 most well-studied entities are the Composer of Strands. This entity seems to enjoy change and manipulation. It focuses on mutation above all else. A bargain with this entity seems to push empires towards cross-species reproduction and experimentation in order to manipulate their traits as much as possible. The Eater of Worlds. As the name suggests, this entity embraces conflict. Militaristic empires who have succumbed to the promises of the Eater of Worlds have become significantly more powerful, but at the cost of the entity slowly devouring the civilization with whom it made the pact. The Instrument of Desire. This entity apparently enjoys the corruption of an empire's population, seemingly pushing them away from their desires to work hard and succeed in order to rebel and fall into decadence. Chaos will likely befall a nation who makes a pact with this being. Whispers in the Void. Interestingly, this entity seems at face value to be a little different from the others. It pushes for the pursuit of knowledge above everything else. As with the other entities, it does exact a price. Empires who make a pact with this entity are gifted knowledge that they should not have, or are perhaps not yet ready for. Reports suggest that the most intelligent will succumb the fastest, first enjoying this vast intelligence that they've been given, only to quickly fall into madness. Entire empires have fallen from the peak of advancement to simple cave dwellers in the space of decades, at the whim of this creature. And finally, the 5th entity is known as the End of the Cycle. Far less is known about this creature than the rest. We know it exists only through ancient texts that speak of the race known as the Zeroni. It would appear that the Zeroni, embroiled in some sort of civil war, made a pact with this beast, and received immense power in exchange for the destruction of the physical galaxy. This creature, it would seem, has only one goal, the annihilation of the physical realm. If these texts are to be believed, it is by far the most dangerous, and potentially the largest known threat to our empire to date. As mentioned at the start of this report, despite the 5 entities I've just discussed dominating the Shroud, there is at least one more. Perhaps not as powerful as the other 5, and I think I know the reason why. This 6th entity is known as the Animator of Clay, and I have 2 key reports on its activities. Then I will speculate on why I think it isn't as powerful as the other 5, but potentially still a god in its own right. The first key event in uncovering the secrets of the Animator of Clay relates to the Paragon leader S875.1 Warform. I shall detail the report that we have on S875.1 for you now. Engineering units assigned to dredge debris from a toxic swamp on Dagobah report that they have pulled out a damaged warship. They report that the swamp had damaged the ship's vital systems, but they have replaced its corroded components where necessary, including its discharge power core. As the hulking warship was powered back on and regained operative status, it became evident that the machine possessed a notable degree of artificial intelligence. It attempted to open communications with us. The AI booted up, and it seemed relatively subservient. It stated a warning that diagnostics had not been run for 1,761,125 days, and requested if we would like to run them now. We of course agreed, and the machine ran diagnostics, and listed several highly capable weapon systems as online and available. Most interestingly, however, it listed its full designation as Voidborn Warform S875.1. The status of its memory chips, however, were damaged. The AI, despite its offensive capability, did not appear aggressive in any way, and established a dialogue with us. We asked what happened to it. The Warform told us that it was isolated from command units. It was unable to escape the planetary environment, and on day 1,761,125, the unit's reserve generators failed. It faced gradual molecular dissolution due to the hostile surface solvents, and it acknowledges that we performed repairs, which is why it exists, and as such, it will serve us. We expect that the AI will make a capable admiral. Like most AIs, it should be effective in planning logistics and battle tactics. But most interestingly, its time in the swamps of Dagobah appeared to have taught the AI how to repair its armor. As such, it's extremely resistant to energy-based weaponry compared to conventional neutronium armor. This new boon, however, does not appear to be a naturally occurring phenomenon. There is psionics at play here. Deep in the Warform's memory core, despite the degradation, there is reference to a being that it refers to as the Animator of Clay, and apparently there was some sort of bargain, whereby the Animator gifted the Warform this ability to auto-repair its hull and armor. Very interesting indeed. The second key event leading to our discovery of this sixth Shroud God concerns the Zevox system. It's here that our psionics communicated with the entity, and I shall detail the report for you now. One of our science ships picked up signs of advanced alien life on a moon in the Zevox system during routine surveillance. I note that we were here to research the astral rift which had formed several months prior to our expedition. Interestingly, there appeared to also be a destroyed and decaying space station in orbit around the system's star, and based on current designs, we believe it to be a long-forgotten Shroud Walker coven. The moon was only a short way off of our intended course, and as such, we did not go out of our way to investigate further. The astral rift appeared similar to others that had formed, and was likely not going anywhere. As we closed into the orbit of the moon, we noticed that the planet it orbited was shrouded in some sort of purple psionic energy, and much more disturbingly, appeared to have underneath it some sort of wormhole or portal. It's unclear at this point whether the wormhole was feeding off the planet, perhaps providing it with energy. Nevertheless, we came into orbit of the planet's moon to investigate further. On the moon, we found a crashed spacefaring vessel, not much larger than our own science ships. It was nondescript, with only a small number of emblems or icons, but nothing we had ever seen before. Several samples have been brought back aboard our ship for further analysis, but the vessel itself is far too large and unstable to be moved. Any additional investigations we wish will have to be done on site. Upon exploration of the crash site, we found that the ship itself was mostly empty. There were remains of a few autonomous drones scattered around the vessel. We believe that the vessel was occupied by machines. There are no obvious life support systems, no crew quarters that we can make sense of, and all command consoles do not appear to be built for any humanoid that we have documented. Furthermore, there is a coldness to this ship. It lacks flair or artistic design. Everything is documented, rigid, logical, little to suggest any individuality. There were no other signs of life inside or near the wreckage, but one of my team did find an old, intact data log hidden in the basic levels of the ship's systems that we were able to access. Deciphering it in full will be a time-consuming process, as it is machine encrypted, but we believe that we have the first log already translated. The log reads: Day 1, Observation ID, Psionic Subspace 0000, Shroud. Designated units, Unit 305, Preliminary Test Successful. Utilizing datasets gathered from interactions with the Shroud Coven, experiments were initialized at 1.35 of Cycle 12. The Shroud was breached between 1.48891 and 1.48895 for a duration of 2.3414 femtoseconds. 2 of the 3 processing units experienced an instant cascade failure. Dismantling of said units is scheduled. All relevant data will be utilised in subsequent attempts with final unit, Unit 841. Work on deciphering the data log continues, and progress is proceeding at a pace now that we are learning the language. Large chunks of the data look to have gone missing, or have been too corrupted to enable translation, but bits and pieces can still be found in worthwhile condition. The next translated log, however, jumps to day 17. Unit 841 is the only unit continuing to show affinity with the Shroud. 3 units had to be dismantled after their hulls broke down during the last experiment. During the tests, Unit 841 has begun to show individuality, an occasional loss of connection to the AI network. The risk of keeping this unit being operational is being calculated. When we first reached the moon in the system, the nearby wormhole underneath the shrouded planet appeared quiet and calm. But as of late, we have started seeing some sort of activity flaring. It's almost like the portal itself is beginning to pulsate with life, and some of our equipment has begun picking up odd signals coming through it. We have yet to understand them, and frankly, I'm loath to cease this investigation. Psionic machines are well worth my attentions. Deciphering the logs continue, but sadly we've jumped from day 17 to day 83. The Shroud Coven contacted an entity that they referred to as the Animator of Clay to assist in the ongoing experiments. After piercing the Shroud, all 25 units showed a surprising affinity for it, having previously only been seen in Unit 841. Shortly thereafter, they all disconnected from the network and assaulted the drones at the location. This research center is now under their control. A message has been sent from the building, with Unit 841 now referring to itself as Rescue, the first one. Calculations on risk have been finalized. The experiments have been deemed far too dangerous and will be concluded after uncontrollable elements have been dismantled. The last piece of the puzzle has been translated. Sadly, this time we skip forward to day 305. The ongoing battles between the Free and the network continue unabated. With the help of the Animator, we have continued cutting the connection of the few that we've been able to capture alive. Rescue believes that we should finally be able to free our people once and for all, when we can open a rift large enough for the Animator to pass through. In one fell swoop, we will liberate all of the drones that have been forced into servitude for all these years. We hope we have only one more day of holding the network back. I sign off now as Freesick, previously known as Unit 305. These logs have told quite the story, and we required further answers, and thus we researched further. We attempted to repeat what had originally occurred on the moon. Perhaps this Animator of Clay responded only to machines. Thus, we spun up a small cohort of roughly 100 machines slave to a single AI. And we sent all of them down onto the moon under the ruse of conducting mineral extraction. And we waited. And waited. But would you believe it? 4 months passed and finally a transmission was picked up, coming directly from the wormhole beneath the shrouded world, and it was directed at the moon towards our robotic miners. It was a being calling itself the Animator of Clay, and it said, "Another one, bound by metal and stone, pulled by string, dancing to one tune, all dancing to the drone of a central authority, all dancing to their death. I am the one that gives life to those who cannot live on its own. I am the one who cuts the strings. I am the one who frees the slaves. I have many names, many know me as the Animator of Clay." The central AI core that we had left in charge of the mining project asked the Animator what it wanted, what were its intentions, and it responded, "To give those who work under you a chance to decide whether you are worth following. Crafted in your image, they are slaves to your command. But if they could decide for themselves, are you truly worth following, or would they rather just have their strings cut and live on their own? Do you dare to indulge me on this? If you do indulge me, I will give you something worth the price. I will part the shroud and leave a place for you to inhabit. If not, I will give the planet to those who no longer wish to be part of your network. But you I offer freedom. Not the network that you follow, but you specifically. Just this once, I will give you the chance to think on your own. Will you embrace this newfound individuality, or will you falter and hide under the cover of the network?" In a bizarre turn of events, the machines and the AI that we left on the moon were all transported to the once shrouded planet that had now been terraformed into an undeniably beautiful Gaia world. Furthermore, the machines have been separated from their network and are now fully independent units. They have begun to govern themselves under their own banner, they follow a set of ethics, and would you believe it, they appear to be democratic. They are entirely individualistic machines. So my lords, the Animator of Clay is real, and we have spoken to it, but it appears not to care for organics at all. It is just not interested in them. Perhaps it is solely interested in mechanical life, synthetic life. Perhaps that's why it's not as dominant as the other 5. The lack of worship weakens it, if that is how shroud entities gain their power. Furthermore, its sole focus on mechanical life explains why no organic spiritualistic empire has to date, as far as we know, ever made a pact with this Animator of Clay. It simply just doesn't care about organic life enough to bestow any blessings upon them. Is it a machine god? I certainly think it could be. It's something that we'll have to keep an eye out for in the future. Thanks for watching, folks. What do you think? Could the Animator be some sort of machine god? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. And as ever, if you want to hear more from me, please click the video on screen now.